It all started with one of the loudest voices in NFL media taking a direct shot at Shedeur Sanders. Before the hype, before the highlight throws, before the debate flipped in Shedeur's favor, Rex Ryan was openly questioning whether the kid deserved the spotlight at all. He didn't sugarcoat it. He didn't hold back. He flat out called Shedeur an embarrassment for not already being the starting quarterback and said he needed to stop talking and start proving something. The comments spread quickly, and it wasn't just a small take buried in some studio segment. It became the headline. Rex framed Shedeur as someone who talked too much and didn't work enough. He even compared him negatively to other quarterbacks, saying they were better leaders, better workers, and more deserving of the job. And he didn't make those statements quietly. He made them with the kind of confidence that suggested he believed every word. The reaction was instant. Fans pushed back. Analysts pushed back. Even other former players questioned why Rex was going that hard at a rookie who hadn't even had the chance to show what he could be. What took this situation from simple criticism to controversy was the tone Rex used. It wasn't constructive or analytical. It sounded personal. He spoke like Shedeur was wasting his potential, like he was more of a show than a quarterback. And when a well-known NFL coach and commentator publicly calls you out for attitude, effort, and maturity, it becomes more than just a sports take. It becomes a narrative. That's where this whole story began. Not with a mistake on the field, not with a bad performance, but with a veteran voice trying to define Shedeur before he even got his shot. The stage was set, the criticism was loud, and the pressure was on. But the thing about narratives in sports is that they don't stay still for long. And what happened next would flip everything Rex Ryan claimed to know about Shedeur Sanders. The moment everything changed didn't come from an interview or a press conference. It came from the field. When Shedeur finally stepped into the spotlight and delivered the kind of performance people didn't expect from a rookie, the entire tone of the conversation shifted. Suddenly, the same people who were dismissing him were forced to acknowledge what everyone watching already saw. He wasn't just doing enough to survive out there. He was taking control of the game. The deep throws were the first sign that this wasn't going to be just another debut. He made passes most quarterbacks wouldn't even attempt, let alone complete. The ball didn't just travel far. It arrived on time, in stride, and right where it needed to be. Those weren't routine completions. Those were momentum-changing plays that take confidence and precision. One throw over 50 yards immediately changed the fan reaction. Another bomb downfield had analysts scrambling for new talking points. And the statistics were undeniable. In just one start, he had already completed more deep passes than the quarterbacks before him managed across an entire stretch of games. But it wasn't just the throws that silenced the criticism. It was how he handled himself. No panic, no fear, no hesitation. When the pocket collapsed, he didn't fold. He escaped, extended the play, kept his eyes downfield, and delivered. That ability separates good quarterbacks from the ones defenses actually fear. The calm wasn't forced or theatrical. It was the kind that comes from preparation and confidence. Fans noticed it. Teammates noticed it. Even Rex Ryan couldn't ignore it anymore. You could feel the tone shift in real time. The criticism suddenly didn't sound sharp anymore. It sounded outdated. The narrative Rex tried to write started to fall apart. Not because anyone argued against it, but because Shedeur made it impossible to deny what he was capable of. And once that happens in the NFL, there's no going back. The story changes, the respect becomes real, and the people who doubted you have no choice but to rethink everything they said. Once Shedeur proved himself on the field, Rex Ryan didn't double down on his original take. He didn't stand behind his criticism. Instead, he took the most predictable route for someone who suddenly realizes the evidence no longer supports what they said. He shifted the target. One week he was calling out Shedeur's attitude, maturity, and leadership. The next week, he barely mentioned any of that. Instead, he changed direction and went after another quarterback entirely, Dillon Gabriel. That pivot wasn't subtle. Rex suddenly claimed that Gabriel wasn't NFL material and started listing flaws that surprisingly matched the things he accused Shedeur of lacking just weeks earlier. It came off less like honest analysis and more like a commentator scrambling to stay ahead of the story. Rather than saying he misjudged Shedeur, he redirected his criticism towards someone else, as if moving the spotlight would erase his earlier comments. Fans and analysts saw it for what it was. The timing couldn't have been more obvious. The moment Shedeur's performance exposed the flaws in Rex's argument, the criticism shifted to a different player. People online were quick to point out the irony. When Shedeur struggled, Rex talked about his attitude. When Shedeur excelled, Rex talked about Gabriel's weaknesses. It was a textbook example of someone refusing to admit they were wrong, even when the proof was right in front of them. What made the pivot even more noticeable was the tone Rex used. Instead of acknowledging Shedeur's growth, he tried to control the conversation. He talked about how he always believed in Shedeur's physical tools and how he knew the potential was there. It was a complete rewrite of what he said earlier. The praise sounded less like a genuine compliment and more like damage control. That's when the hypocrisy became impossible to ignore. The story wasn't just about Rex's original criticism anymore. It was about his inability to stand by his words once Shedeur started proving himself. The shift didn't protect Rex's argument, it exposed it. And the backlash was only just beginning. As Rex tried to flip the narrative, he wasn't the only voice in the conversation anymore. Other analysts, especially the ones who actually understand how fragile a young quarterback's reputation can be, stepped in and exposed the problem with Rex's take. The moment Dan Orlovsky responded, everything changed. Dan didn't go after Rex personally. He didn't turn it into an argument about ego. He simply pointed out the obvious truth. Shedeur's confidence wasn't arrogance. It was the mindset every successful quarterback needs if he's going to survive in this league. And that's where Rex's critique fell apart. He was treating confidence like a flaw. Orlovsky pointed out it was a strength. The two perspectives couldn't have been more different. One sounded like a bitter veteran clinging to his take. The other sounded like someone who recognized talent and gave credit where it was deserved. Orlovsky didn't just disagree. He shut down the entire "Shedeur talks too much" narrative. He called the comments unnecessary and exaggerated. He said Shedeur did exactly what he should have done as the leader of an NFL offense: believe in himself and speak like he belongs. That wasn't the only voice exposing the hypocrisy. Fans and former players noticed Rex's pattern. The criticism felt selective. He questioned Shedeur's attitude, then backed off when Shedeur delivered. He praised the arm talent, then still found ways to nitpick. It wasn't analysis anymore. It was scrambling to stay relevant after having the wrong take. Media segments and social media reactions pointed it out clearly. People highlighted how Rex didn't have that same harsh tone for every quarterback who struggled. Some even suggested that the scrutiny came from a place of ego, not evaluation. What made the backlash even stronger was how quickly the narrative turned after Shedeur's highlight throws. Fans started pulling up clips of Rex's old comments and comparing them to what he was saying now. Analysts began using words like inconsistent and emotional. And with every clip, every quote, and every reaction, Rex's original take looked weaker. It didn't matter that he softened his stance later. The initial comments were out in the open, and the turnaround was too sudden to ignore. The conversation wasn't just about whether Shedeur was good anymore. It was about why Rex felt the need to target him in the first place. It became a story of accountability, who was honest in their evaluation, and who let their pride get in the way. And by this point, it was clear Rex Ryan wasn't the one controlling the narrative anymore. The media had turned the tables, and now everyone was asking the same question. Why was Rex trying so hard to avoid admitting he was wrong? The moment the debate shifted from opinion to proof didn't come from a press conference or a quote. It came from the throws that left everyone watching in disbelief. The plays that turned heads weren't routine completions or short checkdowns. They were the kind that only a quarterback with confidence and talent attempts. One pass in particular became the centerpiece of the argument. A perfectly thrown ball launched more than 50 yards downfield, hitting his receiver in stride. It wasn't just impressive because of the distance. It was the timing, the placement, and the composure he showed in the seconds leading up to the throw. What made those plays different was how effortless they looked. Shedeur didn't look rushed or overwhelmed. He didn't look like a rookie trying to survive another series. He scanned the field, read the defense, drifted to his right, and delivered a strike that most quarterbacks can't make, even with perfect protection. Analysts replayed the clip over and over, pointing out the accuracy and the decision-making. Social media lit up with fans asking the same question: how did this kid get doubted in the first place? And that wasn't the only highlight. Another deep shot showed the same confidence and anticipation. He moved out of the pocket, kept his eyes downfield, and threw a dart to Jerry Jeudy that should have been another game-changing moment. The receiver was wide open. The ball arrived in stride. It should have ended with another touchdown. Instead, it ended in a fumble. But the throw itself proved everything Rex refused to acknowledge earlier. Shedeur wasn't just running an offense. He was commanding it. Even when things didn't go perfectly, the evidence was undeniable. The ball placement, the decision-making, the poise under pressure. Those are the traits you don't teach. You either have them or you don't. And Shedeur displayed them repeatedly. Fans started comparing his play style to some of the league's most dangerous quarterbacks. Analysts began describing him as calm, controlled, and fearless in big moments. That's when the narrative truly flipped. The conversation wasn't about whether he belonged in the starting role anymore. It shifted to whether defenses could handle the combination of arm strength and composure for 4 quarters. Those throws didn't just win a game. They forced everyone watching, including Rex Ryan, to rethink what they thought they knew. One throw can be impressive. 2 or 3 deep shots in a single game, that's a signal. That's the moment the debate ended and the truth became impossible to deny. Once the highlight plays started circulating and the narrative began changing, Rex Ryan wasn't just dealing with fans pushing back. The criticism started coming from inside the football world. That's when the situation escalated. It wasn't just social media or random opinions online anymore. Former players and respected voices began calling out the way Shedeur was being talked about. Cam Newton was one of the first to openly address it. He didn't dance around the subject or soften his words. He said the entire conversation around Shedeur had turned into a circus, and Rex was helping fuel it. Cam pointed out something that most people were already thinking. The only reason there was so much pushback against Shedeur is because so many didn't want to accept how quickly he was rising. He questioned why certain quarterbacks get praised for being outspoken while others get criticized for the same behavior. Rumors started circulating that the entire conversation around Shedeur was never really about football. It was about perception, and certain people couldn't adjust when the perception changed. And the pressure didn't stop there. Other analysts joined the discussion, calling the situation unfair and unnecessary. The tone shifted from debate to accountability. Voices around the league started asking why Shedeur was being held to a standard that didn't apply to everyone else. The more Rex tried to soften his stance, the more obvious it became that the original criticism wasn't just wrong, it was built on shaky ground from the beginning. Even inside Cleveland, the organization began responding. Reports surfaced that the Browns weren't happy with the narrative being created around their rookie quarterback. Coaches and team officials publicly defended Shedeur's work ethic and attitude. They didn't back down or sidestep the question. They made it clear they believed in him and were tired of the media noise. That wave of pushback is what ultimately cornered Rex. He wasn't just dealing with a single bad take anymore. He was dealing with players, coaches, analysts, and fans who all saw through the criticism. The pressure didn't just challenge his opinion, it dismantled it. When the noise around Shedeur reached its peak, the conversation stopped being just about football takes and media reactions. It became something the Browns themselves could no longer ignore. The organization stepped in, and that's when the narrative really shifted. Coach Kevin Stefanski didn't hesitate when he was asked about the rumors and the criticism. He didn't hedge his words or try to avoid addressing Rex Ryan's comments. He shut it down immediately. Stefanski made it clear that none of the accusations about attitude or arrogance had anything to do with what was happening inside the building. He talked about Shedeur being committed, working every day and taking on every responsibility asked of him. There was no question about effort, no question about preparation. The coach didn't need to defend Shedeur's character. It spoke for itself. But he did it anyway, because the story outside the building was so far removed from the reality he was seeing every practice. Fans noticed it too. The team wasn't distancing themselves from a rookie quarterback. They were backing him publicly. Rumors suggest the Browns front office wasn't happy with how analysts were framing Shedeur's confidence, and they wanted the message to be clear. His presence wasn't a distraction, it was leadership. His belief in himself wasn't a flaw. It was the exact mentality the organization wanted at the position. That was the moment the debate stopped being hypothetical. The coaches, the players, and the franchise all stood on the same side. The criticism became background noise. The story wasn't about Rex anymore. It was about the Browns making it known that their quarterback wasn't going anywhere, and the people closest to him believed in his future. When an NFL organization defends a young player that strongly, it sends a message. It says the narrative outside the locker room is wrong. It says the people who actually see the work trust him. And most importantly, it says the kid has already earned the respect that matters most, the respect of the team he leads. When the dust finally settled, the story wasn't about who said what on a broadcast or which analyst delivered the strongest take. It was about how quickly a young quarterback changed the narrative just by playing the game. Rex Ryan didn't walk back his comments because someone pressured him into it. He walked them back because Shedeur Sanders gave him no room to stand on them anymore. The performance, the poise, and the big moment plays made it impossible to hold on to that original criticism without looking out of touch. That's why Rex's change of heart felt so telling. It wasn't the kind of apology where someone admits they were wrong. It was the kind where they're forced to shift their stance because reality already decided the argument. The highlight throws and the leadership weren't flukes. They were proof that Shedeur belonged in the conversation much earlier than Rex was willing to admit. And that's the takeaway that matters. Shedeur didn't silence the critics by talking back. He, analyst, delivered the strongest take. It was about how quickly a young quarterback, Chan, didn't feed the controversy. He didn't respond to the media circus or get caught up in the noise. He did it with the only thing that really moves opinions in the NFL: performance. One great game can change perception. Multiple moments in a single game can change the entire direction of a career. The most interesting part is what happens now. If Shedeur keeps building on this momentum, the narrative won't just be that he proved a critic wrong. It'll be that he forced the league to adjust to him, not the other way around. And analysts are already treating him differently. Coaches are defending him. Former players are backing him. That doesn't happen unless there's something real there. Rex Ryan may have tried to rewrite the story, but the truth wrote itself. Shedeur Sanders didn't just answer the criticism. He flipped it. He turned doubt into proof and pressure into opportunity. And the people who were questioning him first are now the ones trying to explain why they ever did. The conversation isn't whether he belongs anymore. The real question is how far he's going to take this.